Welcome back to Speducation. I'm your host, Brandon Reed. And as always, if this is your first time to the channel, special welcome to you. Well, it is a new week and we have a new lesson. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Today's lesson, the Department of Education and Special Education. So a lot of you are probably wondering, where's he going with this? I thought he said that this channel wasn't political. Well, it's not, and I try not to take a political stance. I do have political feelings, but I don't like to share them because I don't want this channel to become divisive. The reason that I created this channel was so that it could be informative for parents, so that they could be more invested in their child's education. Now, unfortunately, we live in the real world where sometimes politics and education sometimes conflict. And right now, there's a lot of people that are worried about what will happen to special education if the Department of Education goes away. And so I want to try to present the facts to you so that you know a little bit about them and you can make up your decision on your own. So, without further ado, let's dive into today's lesson. The Department of Education. Before its inception, it was part of another department called HUE, which was Health and Human Services, Education, and Welfare. In order to better monitor what is working or what was working effectively in regards to education, the Department of Education Organization Act was signed into law. The Department of Education was first established on October 17, 1979, and began operation in 1980. So the Department of Education really isn't that old. Well, yes and no. The modern Department of Education isn't really that old, but there was a Department of Education that was established in 1867, and it was established to collect data on how schools were teaching material and figure out best practices or better ways to present material to students. So you're probably wondering, though, well, what exactly does the Department of Education do, and how does that relate to special ed? The Department of Education's responsibilities include the mission statement to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. They do this through programs that are provided, such as grants, loans, work-study assistance to more than 12 million post-secondary students. They also promote equal access to education through such things as Title I, Title IX, Title IV of the Civil Rights Act, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, IDEA, etc. They also support the efforts of state schools, charter schools, and private schools in order to ensure the highest level of excellence. They also improve coordination of federal funds and responsibilities for education. So instead of going to multiple departments, all of that information about federal funds and the responsibilities are funneled through the Department of Education. So there's only one person or one department that you have to report to. And then increase the accountability of federal education programs to the President and Congress, as well as the public. So the Department of Education supplements some of the responsibilities that state schools have to take on, and they answer questions related to federal programs, such as Title IX, Title IV, Title I, etc. And whenever questions about legality come up in terms of FAPE, Free and Appropriate Public Education, and IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, whenever those questions come up and they need clarification, the Department of Education is there to answer those questions, as well as to make sure that individuals with disabilities are provided equal access to education. Now, you're probably wondering, well, there are probably some of those people on the left or the right that say, oh, well, the Department of Education doesn't really do much. They're just a big waste of money. It's time consuming, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, the Department of Education does a lot. Now, for the other side that says, well, without the Department of Education, special ed students are going to be lost. Teachers and schools are going to be closed down and people are going to lose their jobs and education in this country is going to go straight to hell. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, slow down, Debbie Downer. Yes, the Department of Education is important, but I don't think it's going to be that grim. So the results of eliminating the Department of Education would be responsibility of distributing federal funds would fall to other departments, like the departments of the Treasury or Defense. Like they don't have a lot to do in the first place. But keep this in mind that the federal funds that the Department of Education provides to states for running their schools is only between 8 and 11%. So that means that even if the Department of Education went away and all those funds dried up, it doesn't mean that state schools would automatically shut down because the majority of their funding comes from states, such as income tax, property tax, etc., and referendums. So eliminating the Department of Education wouldn't necessarily mean that schools would have to shut down. It just means that they would have to reorganize how they fund their schools. And not only that, but even though they have said that they plan on eliminating the Department of Education, those federal funds, they would still be provided to states for public education. They would just come from different departments. The responsibility of ensuring equal access to education would fall to some other department, possibly Health and Human Services. Now, keep this in mind that this kind of already happens a little bit. Yes, the Department of Education does make sure that equal access to education is provided for all individuals with learning disabilities, as well as Blacks, whites, Asians, anybody else. But a lot of those things that relate to IDEA, Title IX, some of those are managed by Health and Human Services. So by eliminating the Department of Education, that doesn't necessarily mean that the special ed students are going to be lost in the system or fall through the cracks. They'll still be provided support and equal access. It's just who the state superintendents or who the representatives for your state report to in regards to those issues may look a little bit different. Now, the question of no clear leadership, that is a real possibility because, again, there's no real mechanism for this. The Department of Education has a Secretary of Education that a lot of these other smaller departments, like the Office of Special Education, reports to. But if you were to remove the Department of Education, there would be a vacuum in place. That means that whenever somebody has questions about legality or about funds being distributed, who are you going to ask? Well, there might be a lot of finger pointing and saying, you need to ask this person or you need to ask this person. So without any clear leadership, there may be some problems. So that's what would happen if the Department of Education were to go away. So would that be the end of the world? No. Would it be the greatest or smartest thing to do? Probably not. But is the Department of Education truly vital? Well, somewhat. And keep this in mind that the modern Department of Education has only existed since 1980. So it's only about 2 years older than me. So before then, we actually had no Department of Education. It was actually shared by other departments, and this country operated just fine. In fact, well, a personal belief of mine is that once the Department of Education was implemented, I feel like education in the country did kind of go downhill a little bit. So even though I do have difference of opinion about how things are supposed to be run, one thing that I do kind of agree with the Republicans, and forgive me for all those that would probably hate me for this, I think the Department of Education is kind of a hindrance in a sense, but it does do some important things like protect individuals' rights, like mine, individuals with learning disabilities that deserve a proper education. So I don't necessarily think that the Department of Education should be eliminated, but at the same time, there needs to be some sort of mechanism in place to prevent all of these open-ended questions about what's going to happen. And above all, please keep in mind that even though there is a lot of divisiveness in this country right now, the one thing that does unite us is that we're all Americans and that we all want what's best for our children. So there's a lot, and I do mean a lot more, that unites us than divides us. So, if you liked today's video, you learned something new, or you're new to the channel, please click that like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you have questions or comments or anything that you would like to discuss about today's video or any other video, please drop a line in the comments section. But above all, please be respectful. And if there is a particular topic in special education that you would like me to cover, please, by all means, let me know and I'd be happy to cover it. And until next time, class dismissed.